So far we have talked about dreaming, helping the person find the dream, what they believe God is called to do. And in dream, remember we wrote a mission statement, one or two lines that basically said, this is what I believe God is calling me to do. And last time we talked about planning. And in planning, we then tried to come up with some sort of a plan of how to get from the beginning point to the end point. Because we realized in that God might have a few mid-course corrections in between as to how this whole thing is going to work out. Now we're going to be talking about supporting. And supporting has to do with how do we see this thing actually acted out and how is this actually accomplished. In your two textbooks, the first textbook, Collins, in his method, he called this action, taking action and making it work, and he calls it obstacles, external barriers, energy drainers, and internal barriers. That's how he looks at it. And Tony Solstice, in your leadership coaching book, calls it support structures. Now we're going to break this out in a lot more detail than that because we have some concrete things we have to get a hold of, and we have to get a hold of them for a more biblical direction than maybe is what is in your textbooks. But this particular idea is, okay, we've got our plan, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we're going to execute our plan. And when you're doing that, there are certain roles that you, as the coach, need to play in the life of the person that you're coaching. And the first one, okay, as we look at this, and we'll go, remember we have our 12 steps, which are the different things that we do, right? The different steps. And then we have the skills for each of those, which end up being about 20 different skills. I'm going to mention both of those as we go through this. The first one we have under supporting is acting. Do you think it would be good to act on the plan? Would that be a useful thing to do? Yes, I think if you don't act on it, we're probably never going to get that one. Like I have a client right now that I'm actually coaching that has a tendency to procrastinate. So where do you think we are? We're sort of working still on the dreaming, trying to get something. I actually gave him an assignment this week, and we will see if he fulfills the assignment, because we have to get him doing something, acting on something, even the first step, to get moving in that direction, to even figure out what he really wants to do, or what might be feasible here. And under acting, the main skill you're going to need is motivating. Now, why do you think that's important? Because if you don't get them to act, we're never going to get there, are we? Under motivating, the first thing is faith, right? Because faith is what? Trust. If they don't believe that this is something that can be accomplished with God's help, are they going to do anything? Or if they have all of these fears that they're going to fail and this isn't going to work out, what are we going to see? Procrastination. What's the basis for procrastination? Fear of failure. Why do people not complete stuff? Fear of failure. If I complete it, then somebody might judge it and say it's no good, right? But if I never finish it, then you can never judge it, right? So we have all these things going in inside of the person being coached. And hopefully you've already figured out some of these things you're going to face. Because remember earlier, we counted the cost, and earlier we did a self-evaluation to find, remember, the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. These are the threats, right? Now what do we know? If the person does not act, what does that mean? It means that the demotivators are exceeding the motivators, right? Because otherwise they would act. If they were more motivated than demotivated, more than afraid, they would act, correct? So therefore and so what is your job in motivation? To help them get more motivators till you overcome the demotivators. Either remove demotivators or add motivators, right? And in faith, what's a major way of doing that? God. Their personal relationship with God. In a lot of cases, unfortunately, even though these are supposed to be fairly mature Christians and so on that you're coaching, they don't really have that close relationship with God, and a close relationship is what builds trust and faith that God is going to come through no matter what. If God called me to do this, what do I know? He is going to provide. But you're going to have to help your client see it that way, and your client get a hold of that, right? Because if they don't believe it's going to work, they're not going to do it. Rewards. You can even build rewards into the system for them. Well, I tell you what, if you go out and you get this done, we'll have a party. Whatever it takes. Build the rewards right in there. What if they fail? Take another action. Just mid-course correction. All it means is, okay, we tried that one didn't work. That is wonderful. Because now we know what doesn't work. Ever hear the story of Edison coming up with the light bulb? And supposedly he was trying all these different metals, and when they didn't work, he tossed them out the window. He's working by the window in his lab, and he just tried that, okay, copper, doesn't work. Before he actually came up with tungsten for the tungsten light bulb, there was this pile outside of his window of all the stuff that he had tried that he knew didn't work. So you can encourage him that way and say, hey, now we know that this and this and this doesn't work. So that helps us home in on what might work, and we know you're not called to sing. You have no talent whatsoever. So let's eliminate that one. We don't have to worry about that one as your dream anymore. Let's go on to another one, right? Let's find out if you can be the janitor. But do you see, from a positive, you as the coach have to be positive about all this stuff, don't you? To motivate them to continue. That's what this is all about. The second one, and I went into this a little bit here, is overcoming discouragement. Because when they try something and it doesn't work, how are they usually going to feel? Discouraged, but you can reframe that. That means see it differently again. Well, that just means we know that that's not the direction we're supposed to be going. We're supposed to be going this direction over here. Or maybe it's not the timing. Again, overcoming discouragement. Increase the faith. Now, in your book, in encouraging, and this is the leadership coach, he calls it guess. They need to, whatever you do needs to be genuine. Don't just make up something. Unequivocal. This is the way it is. Energizing. Yeah, we can go forward with this thing. Specific and substantive. Those are the terms he uses. He uses the acronym GUESS. That when you're encouraging, don't just, hey, if it won't encourage you, don't use it. Don't just blow a bunch of smoke and say, oh, I understand, well, that's okay. You know? No, you've got to really encourage them. Do something that's really going to help them. Replace unhealthy pleasure with a healthy one. Removes temptation. Rewards progress. That's the way he looks at it. Failure leads to progress. We are making progress here. We're accomplishing something. We're getting someplace. At least you're getting some experience of trying different things, and at least you're moving out, and at least we're accomplishing something here. We're not just sitting at home watching TV. But somehow you've got to help them overcome discouragement. How many people are going to get discouraged at some point? One of the things they say about pastors. Pastor wants to quit about once a week. Usually on Monday when he counts how much money came in after the last service. You know, how am I going to do this? All this stuff that comes up, or all those letters that you get in the mail. There's always going to be stuff that the devil is going to throw at you, right? To discourage you. And people that get discouraged aren't going to do anything and never accomplish anything in the kingdom of God, are they? That's just the way it is. Remaining faithful, that's our next step. And our skill under that, but first is accountability. What's accountability in coaching? Progress reports to start with. In other words, if we agree that you're going to accomplish this by this particular time, and I meet with you and you haven't got it accomplished, what do I need to do as a coach? Well, let's see if we can figure out why you didn't get it done. What happened to your motivation? Or maybe we ought to just not coach today and let's give you another week and you call me back and then we'll coach you when you finally get this done. So I've just set a boundary. You don't do the homework. In counseling, we have a standard one for this. In counseling, it is if somebody doesn't do the homework, we do it in session. If it can be done, like your homework assignment, like your chapter you're supposed to have done, and so on. But we can take the counseling session and we can do it in session right here. And of course, you realize that money is a very good motivator. Well, I have no problem. If you want to take a year to accomplish this first step, you can continue paying me as a coach for all of those months, right? Or if you would like to really get going on this thing, we could get this whole coaching thing done in about 2 or 3 months. But you're the one that decides how much this is going to cost you. Is that a pretty good motivator sometimes?
Well, for them, it's well about for us.
Well, hopefully it is for you too. Hopefully you want to move on and get this client where the client is so you have time to work with other clients. Because what is God going to do with you? To the extent you are faithful, to the extent you will help people, He's going to give you more clients, right? See, if you have fear as a coach, that, oh, I'm not going to have any clients, and you try to just hold on to your clients to milk them, do you think this is going to go good? Do you think God doesn't know your heart? See, a lot of this has to do with you, too, and your own attitudes as to what you're doing. Your job is to help them as rapidly as you possibly can, right? The progress reports energizes and motivates. You want to make sure that you don't condemn. Voluntary, positive, preemptive, consistent, honest, specific, and energizing. Notice that energizing all the time? What kind of an attitude should we have when you're coaching? Yeah, let's go get them. Exciting. Up and up, down. Wow, you're doing great. You're doing wonderful. What kind of coaches in athletics do well? Yeah, the ones that are really into it and they really believe their team is the greatest team that ever walked on the face of the earth and they're going to the Super Bowl and we got it and you're great and you're wonderful. Does that do better than? Oh, not again. Can't you do anything? Do I have to do it all for you? Not how you coach. Doesn't work. Just puts people down and makes them more afraid. It de-energizes, doesn't it? And we can't do that. If they're not re-motivated by the report and so on, you have to figure out some way to motivate them, some way to help them. Because if they don't, are they going to remain faithful? That's the step. Are they remaining faithful? What does faithful mean? I see the star. And like one of the wise men. What if the wise men had not remained faithful? Would they be in the Bible today? If they came all the way from the east, they traveled all that distance following that star. Do you think there was any discouragement? Do you think that Herod may have discouraged them just a little bit? But they remained faithful, so they got to see Jesus, didn't they? And they wouldn't have got to see Jesus if they had not overcome their discouragement. First, if they hadn't acted. There are a lot of people who probably had the same ideas and saw these stars and thought they meant something. But they acted, and they overcame their discouragement, and they remain faithful. So we know about them today. Who are the people we don't know about? All the ones that didn't do any of those things, that got discouraged, that dropped out, that didn't act, that were not faithful. The next is supporting. How do we support? This is the next skill under remaining faithful. Holding on to your faith. Bible verses. You can help them. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Nothing is impossible to God. You think you as a coach maybe need to learn a few of those Bible verses and have them readily available? Dealing with selfishness. What is the motivation here? Well, let's turn that around. Why are we doing this? Are we doing this so everyone will applaud us and think we're great and wonderful? Is that what you think your call of God is? Or are you doing this with unconditional love for that person, to help that person no matter what and how they respond? See, they go out and the person you're coaching goes out and preaches for the first time, and no one says a word. What are you going to say to them? How are you going to encourage them? Well, you preached for the first time. It's wonderful. You stepped out there, and now we can continue working on that, right? Remember Pastor Ralph, the senior pastor of this church, tells the story of his dad, after he preached, said, "You're boring." Well, he can do something with that, can't he? He can say, "Forget it, hang it up. My dad can't even believe in me, write it off." Or he can say, "You know what? I need to put some more emphasis in my speaking, and I need to practice this, and I need to get more dynamic in what I'm doing." So we can take it both ways. And the supporting thing is you're going to do that. You're going to take it, okay. That's okay. Now, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to deal with this? Attitude checking. A lot of people are deluded. And they get into ministry, you know, that, well, I'm doing this for all the right reasons. Well, are you really? Let's figure that out. How much do you have to have everyone applauding you and supporting you in order to do this? Maintaining expectations. That in my supporting, I expect that you can do this. I expect that we're going to be moving on. I expect that we're going to accomplish it. I expect that God is going to be here. Let's add some fasting and prayer. Maybe we didn't have enough prayer support in this particular thing. Let's get a bunch of people around you to do that. You as the coach here are going to be sort of a little bit of a problem solver or help them. Let's figure this out. And celebration. Every time something gets done, even if it doesn't turn out as good as we would like, let's have a celebration. Wow, that's great. Hey, let's give God praise and worship Him and thank Him for everything that's going on here. The next step, overcoming obstacles. And the skill under this is overcoming obstacles and barriers. We're going to have to win the trial of our faith. It's a critical thing. If you haven't taken the course Faith Therapy yet, we're going to teach you an entire model of the trial of your faith and how to build your faith, because you're going to have to win that trial. Why is it called a trial? Because it is. Because you are going to be struggling. Your mind, your emotions, your will, and your spirit, your jury is going to be out, reaching a conclusion of what it's going to say about you and whether it believes this thing can really happen. A method that we use many times to see where you're at is called the faith ladder. The faith ladder has to do with, well, when do you think this is really going to happen? By the time you're 85? Or 20 years? Or 5 years? Or 2 years? Or today? What do you have faith for? What do you expect down in your spirit? What do you know is going to happen? Because if you know this isn't going to work, how are we going to do it? Not well. So we're going to have to, and this obstacles it really is, can I win this trial? And then what do? When we have an obstacle or a barrier? Problem solving. The acronym GET. Generate options, establish solutions, and take action. Okay, we have this obstacle. How are we going to get around the obstacle? Do we burrow through it? Do we go around it? Or do we fly over it? Now let's decide. What's the best thing we can do? And we come up with a plan and we overcome the obstacle. And that's one of your jobs as a coach, is to help them come up with ideas how to face the obstacles that are going to be in their way and how to overcome them. Okay, yes, I know that you believe that you're called to be a nurse. And I know that because you had a 2.4 average, they just kicked you out of nursing school. Now, what are we going to do about it? Well, how about find another nursing school that'll take it? If this is what we really believe. Or is this a hint that maybe we're not going in the right direction? Maybe we need to aim a slightly different direction. You have to say. But you as a coach are going to have to help them overcome the obstacles. Then the next step is owning the dream. Building faith that it will happen. When do you own the dream? When you know that you know that you know that you have it, right? You know, this is coming back. This is what God's called me to do, and this is what I'm doing, and this is going to work, and it's my dream, and I'm owning it. Owning the dream, building faith it will happen, knowing that it comes from God. At this point, at some point, you're going to have to know that you know that you know this is what God called you to do. Believe that it will happen with God's help. Take responsibility to see it will happen, and patience. Do you think patience is useful? Now, let me warn you about something. Don't go out into the ministry without being absolutely sure you're called by God. Why? Because you will be tested. And if you're wavering, well, maybe this is not what God called me to do, think we're going to have a problem? When you're tested, remember Jesus? What did the devil say to Jesus when he tempted Jesus? If you are the Son of God. He started every statement with that. Why? He was trying to challenge Jesus. Maybe you're not the Son of God. Maybe you just read all this stuff. Maybe you're not really the one. Because if he can get him to doubt whether this is his mission, he can stop the entire thing. But see, Jesus had already owned the mission. He had already been baptized by John. And God had spoken from heaven, "This is my beloved Son." But the devil could get him to go back on that. He could have stopped the entire thing. If you are called to be a counselor, if you are called to be a coach, if you're called to be a pastor, know what this step is, there's no if about it. That is what God called me to do. That is what my life is all about. That is what I am carrying out. This is my dream. It's a dream that God gave me. And I'm going for it no matter how long it takes. This is the focus of my life. This is what's going to happen. You might think that's a bit arrogant. No, it's not. At this point, you need to get to that place. Because when you go out there and you face the lions, you face the giants, you better know that this is what God has called you to do, or you're going to have a tendency to waver. Accepting the mantle. Now this is not only, the first is owning the dream. Yes, this is where I'm going. Accepting the mantle is, now, this is what I am. I am a pastor. I am a coach. I am a counselor. This is what I am. And no one can dissuade me from that. Knowing that you have it in the Spirit. How do you know it? You know that you know that you know. You're going to see, if you're called in the business, then those are going to apply. If you're called in leadership, those are going to apply. But now this is the mantle, so now you're saying, okay, now how do I do this the very best I can do? Here's a statement, I think it's from Zig Ziglar. Do it poorly until you can do it better. If you have something that's worth doing, then do it poorly until you can do it better. That's how this all is. You have the mantle, you're a good pastor, but you can be a lot better pastor. You're a good coach, you can be a lot better coach. If it's worth doing, then start doing it. That's the acting that we're talking about here in this whole thing today. And get the support that you need there. And then finally, passing on the mantle. That's our 12th step. How do we pass it on? First, we have to prove your ministry. You have to be successful in what you're doing before you pass it on. If you want to pass on to somebody who doesn't work, it's all messed up, you're not going to want it anymore, right? Passing on the passion and the need. You need to be excited about this thing. If you're not, we got a problem. There's something wrong there. And coaching somebody else, discipling somebody else, just like Elijah discipled Elisha. Same kind of thing. So now what does this all look like? Let's get a picture and let's go back to the story of my daughter again, okay? And we talked about last time, and let's just go through those same steps, and let's just see what it looks like when it's fleshed out in a real coaching situation. Well, what's the first thing under action that I had to do with my daughter? Had to apply to the different colleges, right? We already had the plan that we talked about last time, and see which one she was accepted into, and then help her decide which college she wanted to go to. As I mentioned last time, she decided to go to Pepperdine University, probably one of the most expensive colleges, at least on the West Coast. Well, do you think that it all went fine and there were no struggles and that there were no problems? What I remember was the first 6 months. Because guess what? She got there and she was a little Kansas girl among all of these rich and famous people, movie stars, everybody. And how do you think she felt? Yeah, inferior. So she had to battle. See, here is the overcoming discouragement. Has she got her into too much? Can she do this? Can she make friends? How does she fit in with this group of kids in this elite university? And she would call and she would be down, and she got into almost a whole cycle of part of the time she'd be going out trying to make friends and everything, not getting her homework done. And then she'd get depressed and just stay in her room and just do her homework and just back and forth and all this kind of stuff. And she's calling you, we're going to have to help her, right? To help her overcome the discouragement. Take her to God. Lord gave me the model of Leah about feeling inferior that we were able to use at that particular time to help her, where now her focus on if this is what God has called her to do, and it doesn't make any difference who the other kids are. It's not a competition with the other kids. It's her getting a hold of this dream and going for this dream and getting a hold of what God wants and serving God and doing what God has called her to do. And she got a hold of God and turned that whole situation around. Eventually, she got in the sorority and even became the social chairman of the sorority. Remaining faithful. I think that was a struggle. Yeah, especially now that she's working at her PhD. Guess what she found out? This is a lot longer and a lot more expensive and a lot harder than I ever thought. Another one of those discouragement things in her pre-practicum. She had a graduate student that sort of got her going in the wrong direction and doing things in a wrong way, and she flunked the pre-practicum. Now that means she's behind the other students. How do you think that feels? Well, can I even do this? Am I really in the right place? Do you see all the challenges that you face time after time after time? And of course we had to do the encouragement again. Well, it doesn't really make a big difference. You know, once you finally have your degree and you're out there in the field, so what? It's only a pass-fail course, so all I have to do is retake it. Costs you a little bit more money, but no big deal. You get it figured out. See, now she's got 10 clients. But she got over that, you see? Accountability. And guess what happens when she calls and talks to her mom and dad? That's sort of the report back, isn't it? Of how things are going out there and what is going on. And supporting. What do we have to learn? Quit trying to fix her. Quit trying to tell her what to do. Just listen.